Today in our 2009 Jeep Liberty, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Roadmaster Diode 7-wire to 6-wire Flexco-Coil wiring kit, part number RM-15267. Our diode kit is going to eliminate the need for those magnetic lights that you see a lot that you stick on the side of your car and you have to run the wires along the side, because they're actually going to get wired into our existing tail lights with just a few components. It's going to accept our RV's stop, tail, and turn signals, and we're going to be able to use them on our Liberty's factory tail light. We're not going to have to drill a new hole in our tail lights and put a new bulb in or use those magnetic lights. It's going to come with a 6-way round socket as well as the bracket to mount it on the front of your vehicle, and we're even going to get a coiled cord that's going to come with it so we can hook our RV and our car up. Now, one of the big benefits of our diode wiring kit is that it is going to prevent any kind of electrical feedback if there were anything to arise on the motorhome side and protect our vehicle's wiring. Now, since our vehicle has a separate turn signal opposed to the brake, our diode kit is actually going to turn our brake signal into our turn signal while we're towing our Liberty. Now, when we're not towing our vehicle, all of our lights are going to work just like normal, and we will still have that separate turn signal bulb. So as you see here, we have an orange turn signal, which is going to be a separate bulb from our brake and tail light. But when we are hooked up, it is going to use that same bulb for the brake lights and the turn signals. Our wiring kit's going to have everything you need to get it installed on your Liberty. It's going to come with 4 high-powered diodes, 30 feet of 4-pole wiring, as well as any other connectors, and a few zip ties to get everything in place. So now that we've seen what it looks like and gone over some of the features, let's show you how to get it installed. To begin our installation, we're going to remove our taillight housings so we get access to the wires. We're going to have 2 fasteners that are holding them in place. We're going to be using a 10mm socket to pull them out. Now, when you go to pull your taillight out, you're going to want to pull straight back, or as much as you can, because there are some alignment pins and you don't want to break them. Pull our taillight out. We're going to go ahead and push on the tab right here, which will disconnect our wiring. We'll go ahead and set our taillight aside. We'll do the same thing for the other side. Now, yours may not look like this. You may just have it coming out of the vehicle to this connector, but ours currently has trailer wiring on it, so we're going to go all the way back until we get to the factory wiring here, and we're going to strip back some of this wire loom and some of the tape so we can expose the wire itself. If you do use a knife to cut the tape, you just want to be extremely careful not to damage the wires underneath. With the wires exposed, you're going to want to turn on your headlights, and we're going to test to find out which circuit is our headlight circuit. So you're going to want to take a circuit tester and test each wire with only the tail lights on right now. That way you can make sure you can isolate each circuit. So we can see that this wire is going to be my tail light circuit wire, and it's going to be the white wire with the green stripe on it. Now there is 2 of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to take a Sharpie. I'm just going to make a mark on the wire, that way I know which one I'm working with for my taillight circuit. Now we're going to need to find our brake signal. So we can either have an extra set of hands, or you can take something and prop it on the brake pedal. Just make sure to turn your taillights off so you can isolate the brake signal. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go around testing each one of our wires until we get our circuit. So it looks like it's going to be the green wire with the white stripe. So we're going to need to write that down or remember that, and we're going to repeat the same process of testing and verifying our wires on the passenger side as well. Now over here on the passenger side, the colored wires are going to be slightly different. Now the green wire with the white stripe, and if we look on our connector, it's going to be next to the purple and white wire. On the bottom 2, the white and green is going to be your brake signal, and the white with a purple stripe is going to be your taillight signal. Now again, we do have another white and green striped wire, so I went ahead and made a mark on both of those wires to let me know those 2 are going to be the ones I'm going to use on the passenger side. At this point, we can go ahead and grab our 4-pole wiring out of our kit, and we're going to need to separate each one of these wires for a decent amount. So I'm just going to take a pair of cutters and very carefully cut just a little bit in between each wire. You want to be careful not to cut into the wire. And then we can just grab it and separate a little bit at a time. So over on the driver's side, we're going to start with our brake signal, which is going to be that green wire with the white stripe. Now we're going to want to come downstream a little bit from the connector, and we're going to cut the wire and strip back both ends. Then we can grab one of our diode packs, and we're going to take two of the connectors off and crimp them onto our wire. Then we can take our 4-pole wiring, and we're going to be working with the yellow wire. So we're going to strip back the end and then apply that last terminal onto the wire. Now we can take our diode, and the yellow wire is going to go into one of the in terminals, and then the wire coming out of our vehicle is going to go into the other in terminal, and then finally the one going to the tail light is going to be going on the out terminal. So now for our tail light wire, we're going to do the same thing. Grab one of our diodes and crimp onto the connectors. Now we're going to grab our brown wire, strip back the end, and put that last terminal from our diode on there. And again, we're going to take our brown wire going to the in, the wire coming from our vehicle, going onto the in, and then the wire going out to the socket is going to go to the out. Now the other end of our 4-pole wiring and the excess wire, we're going to pass down through the bumper and the body until we can get it down to the ground. So you can just take all your wire, and there should be enough space that we should be able to just pass it down through. And if we need to, we can reach under and pull the excess out. So our wire is going to come out right here on the driver's side, just on the very outside of the bumper. Now we're going to want to take all of our excess wire, including the brown and green and the other end of our 4-pole, and we're going to want to route this along the back edge of our bumper, zip tying it wherever you need to, and we're going to go up so we can reach our taillight circuit on the other side. Now I just want to mention, you do want to be a little bit extra careful around this side of the passenger side, because we do have our muffler right here and you don't want it to damage the wires. So for right now, I'm just going to run my wire over. I'm actually just going to pass it up and then reach up top and grab the wire that I need. So we'll grab the white and green wire and pull all that excess through, and we're just going to grab a big loop of the 4-pole wiring, but we don't need to bring it all the way back up. So over on the passenger side, we're going to start with our brake wire, which is going to be that white wire with the green stripe. We're going to do it just like we did on the other side. Cut it in half and strip back both ends. And grab another one of our diodes. We're going to crimp 2 terminals onto each end of the wire. Now we're going to take our green wire, and we should have plenty of excess, but we're going to go ahead and estimate how much we need. Maybe give ourselves a little bit of extra, and we're going to cut the wire and strip back the end. And we can take one of the last blue terminals on our diode and then crimp it in place. And just like the other side, green wire is going to go into the in terminal. The wire coming from our vehicle is going to go to the in terminal. And then the wire going out to the socket is going to go on the out terminal. Now we're going to need to separate our brown and yellow wire. So I'm going to take a knife and very carefully go in between the 2 wires. Careful not to cut the wire itself. You just want to separate the insulation from each other. And this diode is going to be slightly different. So that brown wire is coming from the driver's side. So we're going to go ahead and cut that wire and strip back both ends. So now that you have the wire cut and split and stripped back, we should have one more diode that has a yellow terminal on it. So we're going to take our 2 wires and we're going to twist the ends together, and we're going to grab our diode, except this time we're going to grab the yellow terminal off of it, and we're going to crimp it on to our 2 brown wires. Then we can find our taillight signal, which is going to be that white wire with the purple stripe on it. And we're going to cut it back and strip back both ends. And we're going to take the 2 remaining terminals and crimp them in place. And then finally, terminal going to the socket is going to go on the outside. And then the 2 remaining are going to go into the in terminals. And it doesn't matter which one, just as long as they go to the in terminals. Now we can tidy up our wires and put our taillight back in place. So we can kind of just tuck our wires back, but we are still going to have that white wire. Now our white wire is going to act as our ground. So I'm actually going to apply it right here directly to the sheet metal. So we can just estimate, give ourselves a little bit extra, cut back the excess wire, and then strip back the end. Now in the kit they do provide you with a ring terminal. So we can just slide it over our stripped wire, and we can crimp it down. So then I'm going to take the provided self-tapping screw and a 5/16 nut driver. I'm just going to drill it right into the sheet metal here. You just want to be careful, make sure that there's nothing back there that may cause any damage. Now on the back of the diodes we're going to have some double-sided sticky tape. And what I'm actually going to do is just take off the backing. And instead of sticking it to the vehicle, since there's limited space because of the taillights, I'm actually just going to stick them together. That way they're close to each other and they stick close. You can actually just tuck them down a little bit and we can get ready to reinstall our taillight. So we can plug it back in, make sure it locks in place. We're going to line up those alignment tabs. And then we can put the fasteners back in place. We'll do the same thing for the other side. Now you do have the option of cleaning up your wires now, zip tying them in place, but we're going to go ahead and run our 4-pole wire up to the front first and leave cleaning up the wires to the very last. Now everybody is going to route their wires a little bit differently, but just want to mention you want to stay away from those heat sources like the exhaust or any moving parts. So I'll go ahead and route this wire and then I'll show you how I did it. So I routed my wire behind the muffler here, started going along the frame. When I dropped it down, went to the outside of the frame, and then started zip tying it wherever I could possible to keep it secure. Just following along the outside. And then once I got up to the front here, I actually went over our front axle. And it's going to be a little hard to see, but I zip tied it to one of the motor mounts, going above the front axle and the steering components, and then dropping it back down right in front, zip tying it to the base plate, and finally coming out right in front of the car. So we're going to have to find a spot to mount our electrical socket. Our kit's going to come with a bracket. Right next to the license plate here would be a good spot to mount it up. So I'm going to grab a couple self-tapping screws and I'm going to go directly into the bumper. Now there's a couple layers of plastic. You want to try to go through both of them just so it has a little bit more grip. So for now I'm going to take my wire and coming from the back side, I'm going to route it through the bracket. I'm trying to get all the excess slack out of there. Leave a little bit extra so I know how much I need. And we can go ahead and cut back our wires and start wiring up our plug. I'm just going to cut the excess wire off. Then we're going to want to separate each one of these wires. So just like before, being extra careful, we're going to cut right in between each one of the wires and then we can start pulling them apart. Now we don't need that much this time, just a few inches. That way we can strip it back and have a little bit more room to work with. So we can take our dust cover off of our socket and we're going to pass all of our wires through. And for now we're just going to push it back out of the way. And we can strip back the ends of each one of our wires. Now on the back of our socket, each one of the terminals is going to be labeled. So we'll go ahead and start with our brown wire, which is going to be on the very top terminal, which is marked TM for trailer marker. So we're going to loosen the set screw. And then we can take our bare wire, and we're going to put it into the terminal. Now we have found that if you just leave just a little bit of the wire exposed on the outside and try not to get any of the insulation inside the terminal, because they do get kind of finicky sometimes, the connections start to act funny. And you're just going to tighten the set screw down to keep the wire in place. Our next terminal, if we're looking at it towards the left, we labeled GD for ground. And we're going to put our white wire in that terminal and tighten up that set screw. Then we'll have LT for left turn, and that'll be our yellow wire. And then our next one at the bottom will be RT for right turn, which will be our final green wire. We're going to take our dust cover, we can slide it through the bracket, put it back on our socket. Now I'm going to take a little bit of electrical tape, and it'll help keep the dust cover in place. And it'll also help hide some of these wires, because I'm going to tape as much of the wire as I can. So with everything wired up, we can go ahead and mount our socket to the bracket. And our kit's going to come with a couple screws and lock nuts. So going through the front of the socket and then the bracket, we can put the screw in place and loosely get that lock nut on. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. You're going to want to grab a 3/8 wrench to hold the nut on the back and a Phillips head screwdriver, and we can tighten everything up. Now for that excess wire that's coming out the back of my socket, I'm going to take a zip tie. I'm actually going to go right around this plastic here to help secure it and keep it away from the radiator or any other heat sources, and keep it from banging around when we're driving down the road. Now we can go to the back and clean up any wires that we need to and take our time, make it look nice. So I went ahead and just zip tied my wires up, and actually there's a couple bumper supports here that I went behind to help hide the wire as well. Now all we have left to do is go ahead and test our kit to make sure that all of our circuits are working properly. So we can take the included coiled wire, we're going to plug it in, and we can start running through all of our lights, make sure everything works properly. Alright, so you can see that I have my headlights on my vehicle and my left turn signal. My turn signal is going to come on at the same time on my Liberty as the vehicle towing it, as well as the right turn signal and even the brakes. So now that we know that everything works well, we're ready to hit the road. And that'll finish up your look at the Roadmaster Diode 7-wire to 6-wire Flexco coil wiring kit, part number RM-15267 on our 2009 Jeep Liberty.